And I know a lot of men are dealing with this right now, like wishing that their wives would just open the door. Please help me with this. I need your help, baby. Like, and she's like, no. And then so your mind rushes off somewhere else. And then now you've been exposed, and it's just not a healthy place to be. All right, brothers. So has your wife ever told you that she's not going to have sex with you for any random reason? And do you feel that she makes excuses every single time you're actually in the mood? Well, I'm going to say this. If that is the case for you, your wife literally could be making you vulnerable to sexual temptation. Mm, We're going to get into this today. So I need you to go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. If you feel any of this right now, you know that this is happening in your home or has happened in your home. Tune in, comment. Let's talk about this thing, because I'm going to try and make this quick. I ain't going to be trying to spend a whole bunch of time on this. So I got my notes so we can just get straight to it. So the one thing I want to talk about here is the fact of a wife withholding sex from her husband. This is something that happens very often in marriages. I don't know the percentage on it, but these are things that I hear too often. I see it on TV shows, a woman who's saying to her husband, oh, you ain't getting any because of whatever the case it is. Or in your case, it could be the fact that you didn't get the right avocado today, right? You didn't get the right avocado, bro. So guess what? You ain't getting no sex. Or you picked up Johnny and Sally at 4:35 instead of 4:30, and because of that, you doing that, you ain't getting no sex. Or because, let's be real, I'm tired. That's the one. That's a good one, right? Or whatever the reason, I didn't shave today. And do you think that that's a big deal? It's not a big deal. It could be a big deal, but there are a lot of reasons or excuses as to why a woman does that thing to a man. Do I think it's right? Absolutely not. Can I understand that there are times where that might be the case? Yes. So don't excuse me saying like there should never be a time where this is not happening, because I believe that there are times where it could be for a bigger reason than just like you didn't get the right avocado. Now, if you didn't pick the right avocado, shame to her for closing the door, but bro, get the right avocado, right? Save yourself some time. But what I want to really get down to here is what happens when a wife closes the door to her husband in this area. As I mentioned earlier, it's the fact that she makes him vulnerable to sexual immorality, sexual temptation, because now that husband, he has his need. A wife, she needs to talk. A husband, he needs to have sex. A wife has to talk. Let me make that very clear. She has to talk, and a wife and a husband has to have sex. It is something that God just created in the man and the woman to do. So if a wife is not having her needs met, where a husband is emotionally present and allowing her to speak and share her feelings, whatever the case it is, and a wife is not providing that open door for the man to be able to get his rocks off, so he doesn't have to go and watch porn or masturbate or do whatever the case it is, again, she's causing problems. Now, does it mean that the man is not strong enough to not watch porn and do all these things? I believe he's strong enough, but it just becomes down to self-control, right? You can utilize it, but just don't want to, because it's like, man, I'm trying to get off today and my wife ain't letting it happen. And I know an easy way to fix this thing real quick, very fast. It ain't going to take too long. I don't need 2 hours to do this. I just need to get in and out. And that's sometimes the problem where I think wives miss the mark when it comes to their husbands. We don't need all these long sessions, 2, 3 hours. Look, that ain't me. If that's you, power to you, brother. But that ain't your boy. Okay. So, but we don't need all that. Really, the end game is releasing, right? That's it. I mean, the whole end game is releasing. Yeah, there's the pre-game and then there's the post game, right? And then you're actually in the game. Some people don't need pre-game. They go straight warm. They already warm. They in the game right away and just trying to get to the end and say they got a dub, right? Let's be real. So again, sorry if that made a sound, I apologize. So if a wife ends up withholding that thing from her husband, she's doing a disservice to him, because he is going to start thinking on other things that are outside of the marriage. Now, what I want to do is I want to be able to read something to you real quick from this word. all my source, everything I talk about is biblically driven, right? I grew up in the church. This is what I know. And this is to help me to be a better husband, a better father, a better son, brother, better worker, business owner, all these different things. It creates life, not death. So when I share these things from this, it's only speaking life and not death over the situation. So again, men, this is to help you when I share this. If you've never read this thing before, you can literally download an app on your phone to read it, or you can go buy one. And, this is the NLT version, New Living Translation. They probably don't cost too much right now. I really don't know because I haven't bought a Bible in quite some time. But what I want to do is I just want to read from 1 Corinthians 7, and it's going to be 1 through 8. So I'm going to read it real quick. But it says, now regarding the questions you asked in your letter, yes, it is good to live a celibate life. We'll get deeper into this too. But because there's so much sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman should have her own husband. The husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. Do not deprive each other of sexual relations unless you both agree. Now, it takes two to tango here. You both agree to refrain from sexual intimacy for a limited time so that you can give yourselves more completely to prayer. Okay. So there's times where we fast as Christians, where we abstain from certain things like TV, foods for a certain amount of time. And if sex is included in that, to give yourselves more time to prayer, that's when it should be okay. Afterward, though, you should come together again, right? Meaning joining yourself together as one, you and your wife, so that Satan won't be able to tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Now, this is a huge part that's very important that I think that some people actually miss, because men, if you do read the Bible, this is what you'll say and you'll hold it over your wife's head, and that could be used as a weapon too, right? And you don't want to do that. But it says here in uh, verse 6, I say this as a concession, not as a command. Okay. So that part is very important. And as we speak about this, you understand why. So that again was 1 Corinthians 7, 1 through 6. I was going to do 1 through 8, but that's fine. So here's why, right? The husband has given authority over to his wife for his body. The wife has given authority over her body to her husband. So in this case, you are joined together as one. Genesis 2:24 speaks about this. When a man leaves his father and mother and joins his wife, and then together they are joined as one. So if you're joined as one, you have given authority over to her for your body, and she has given authority over to you for her body. And this is why a woman should never withhold sex from her husband, because she is hurting herself and she is hurting her marriage, and she is possibly damaging her husband by not allowing these things to happen. It is a need that he has, and it's very important that that need gets met, right? Because marriage is important. You join together as one. You decide to get married for a reason. You don't want to be out there sleeping with a bunch of people. And if you did, then why would you get married for? Why would you decide to take that time to get married to somebody just to want to sleep with 1,000 other people? No, but I bet if you were getting your needs met by your wife, the one that you decided to marry, then you wouldn't think about those things. You wouldn't really have as much problems or as stress. And it's not to say that you wouldn't not do that at all, but it's less, right? The whole goal is to minimize the door, closing the door to the sexual temptation, right? So it could still be there with her meeting all your needs, and you still might have that because we're men. We see things that you look. My pastor likes to say it like this: Satan cannot attract me with a gorilla. All right. So that, when there's things that are out there, you see them and your mind can go 1,000 different places. But if your wife is constantly meeting your needs, those thoughts and those temptations start to go down because she's giving you everything that you want and need. And it's your bride. It's the woman that you thought was more gorgeous than anything. So her doing that is very helpful. So again, we read from 1 Corinthians 7, 1 through 6, which I think is very important to read. If you've never read it before, I would encourage you to see it with your own eyes. Don't just take what I'm saying, read it for yourself. And then Genesis 2:24, which helps you to understand that a man leaves his mother and father and joins his wife, and then together they become one. And so with that, that's very important to hold on to. And if you choose not to have sex with your husband, wives, if you're listening to this, and men, if you're hearing this, then you could understand that, again, there's a ton of damage that comes from this, but it's also like a mutual responsibility. You guys both deserve and owe it to yourselves to have that relationship. There's unity in it. And at the end of the day, there's intimacy. Do you not want that with your wife? Do you not desire to have that? And again, men, I feel you though. Like it can be very difficult and challenging to not get your needs met sexually if your wife decides to just close the door on you for whatever the reason. I I get that. I've been there before, right? My wife, she don't do that like that. There's been times we've been sleepy, stuff like that, and I'll back up, be like, all right, baby, get your rest. Like I'm good with that. But we're in agreement now. But if there's something I desire and it's like something I really need, my wife does not withhold that from me because we both understand what this word says. We both have given ourselves to myself to her, herself to me. And it's not easy. And the reason I was saying earlier today about why I believe there are times where it may not work out that way and you can't use that to your in advantage or disadvantage. You can't use it against your wife in this way is because let's say there was some type of trauma that happened in your home. You stepped out and cheated, you got an STD, or whatever the case it is, and now you're telling her, well, we're supposed to have sex. This is what's supposed to take place. Bro, do you realize that your wife now has dealt with something very traumatic, and for her to have to like put herself out there, that may not work just as simple as like, yeah, you're supposed to do this. No, what you're supposed to do is find a way to get some counseling, get some help, and really talk about those things, converse about them, communicate, have that open dialogue that's very necessary for her to understand like, hey, I'm dealing with this, she's dealing with that, but you're willing to take the time to understand what the issue is, right? Because that's just as important. So again, I believe in here, and that's why Paul says, a husband should do this, a wife should do this, because there are times where it might not be as easy to do it, right? But at the end of the day, you should work together to try to figure out a way to get that back. So if you've lost it for whatever the reason and you decide that you're going to stay married, then the whole goal should be to figure out a way to join back together so you do not stay tempted on whatever that Satan brings at you, whether it be another girl who's been trying to talk to you or, again, the computer or your phone with porn. It's so easy to find now. Whatever you want it, anytime you want it, with whatever genre you're looking for, it is out there. And then you get some of that stuff that's unlocked. You're like, what? I didn't even know this was a thing. These are the things where the enemy is just trying to tear your marriage apart, all because your wife decided to say, you know what, I'm not in the mood, or you didn't get the avocado, bro. Go get the avocado. Make sure you know which one it is. But still, that gives her no excuse to hold that over your head. And so at the end of the day, for me, I believe that there's healing in this. And I know a lot of men are dealing with this right now, like wishing that their wives would just open the door. Please help me with this. I need your help, baby. Like, and she's like, no. And then so your mind rushes off somewhere else. And then now you've been exposed and it's just not a healthy place to be. So men, I want to hear from you. Do you deal with this at all? Has this ever been a thing that you struggle with? If so, like, comment, subscribe. But understand, I completely get where you're coming from. And I will fight with you until Jesus comes back about this need being met because I believe it's extremely important. But if there's traumatic things that have happened in your wife's life or just traumatic things that have happened in general, you guys got to get down to the nitty gritty. Really have that conversation, talk about those things so that you can get back on the same page and restore your marriage, restore your relationship, restore that sexual intimacy that you guys both need and desire. So at the end of the day, if you like this, you know what to do. And brothers, we'll talk soon. All right, see you.